Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Appreciate everyone who's very timely. We always love to see the people trickling in a couple minutes ahead of time. Feel free to let everyone know where you're joining from in the chat today, what sort of content you create. We'd love everyone to be able to just get to know each other a bit and see where people are tuning in from. Welcome, everyone. We got a global crowd today. It's great to see. I know the time zones are often tricky, so I appreciate you tuning in live.
Especially after daylight savings, right?
That's true, yeah.
At least here,
Yep.
where we are. So cool. I love seeing people from all over.
And we'll give everyone a few more minutes to trickle in. And I'm going to touch on this again later, but feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat button. You'll also see below a Q&A function. So if you have a specific question about what we talk about today, about We Are Women Owned or about issue, please drop it in there so we can make sure we get to it, because it can often get lost in the chat with the amount of messages we have. It's awesome to see all the different content people create here. A lot of different stuff. All right, well, I think we will go ahead and kick it off. We'll probably have a few more people joining in a bit. But again, this will be sent out after a recording, so everyone will be able to watch the whole thing. Thank you, everyone, for attending the Secret to Stellar Content Marketing for Small Businesses with We Are Women Owned. We have Lisa on today. I'll let her introduce herself a bit more later. We're really excited to dig into the content she and her organization has to share with us. Just to start, my name is Talius Chickering, and I'm a marketing campaign manager here at Issue. I'm a Chicago native, a coffee lover, an occasional snob, and a Criterium bike racer. Lisa.
I love that. I am Lisa Nicole Rosado. As Talius kindly noted, I am the founder of We Are Women Owned, and we are your go-to source for discovering, shopping, and supporting women-owned small businesses. I am a dog-obsessed, New York-born and raised Latina, living and loving Jersey City. I've been here for about 1.5 years, and I just love the sense of community here. It's a big part of who I am. And so naturally, I support a lot of women-owned small businesses in the neighborhood too. And for We Are Women Owned and myself, creating opportunities for women-owned small businesses to gain brand visibility while also making it easy for values-driven shoppers to discover and support them is one of my and WAWO's greatest passions. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much for coming on today. And we're going to dive into more about Lisa and more about We Are Women Owned in a second. Just before we dive in, I got a few housekeeping items. As I mentioned, the chat and Q&A are both open below. You'll see that in your Zoom menu bar. The chat is where you can add in any comments about yourself, what sort of content you create. But if you have a specific question, please put that in the Q&A so we can make sure that we see it and answer it. We also have Audrey, our head of customer success, on today, who will be answering those questions live via that Q&A menu. And then we'll have a dedicated live Q&A session at the end. As I always like to mention, this presentation, these slides are a resource for you. So we will be sending all this out pretty soon after the webinar is finished live, so everyone can have access to it. If you missed some of it, if you came a little bit late, or if you just want to review, you'll have access to that. So the bulk of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to dive into the mission of We Are Women Owned and the history of women-owned businesses, why it's important to support women-owned businesses, and then the specific tools and strategies that Lisa and We Are Women Owned have for everyone on the call today, so that you can grow and increase your own brand regardless of the content, use case, or industry you're a part of. And then, as I mentioned, a quick live Q&A to answer any questions we missed at the end. All right, Lisa, can you take us a bit more through We Are Women Owned? What is this organization? What is your mission? And just like a few more details about the context of the organization.
Absolutely. I just want to say, first and foremost, I am so honored and so grateful to have people from all over the world attending this webinar today. I'm truly grateful for your time. And I think this speaks to what's so cool about going digital. So We Are Women Owned Now is your go-to platform for discovering women-owned small businesses. We have a directory that features over 100 fantastic women-owned businesses, both in the product and service space, which is something I don't see very often. And I'm really excited that we actually create space for both to coexist. And we also, on the back end or internally, we have a beautiful community. So when you join the WAWO network, is what we're calling it now, not only does your brand get listed on our directory for people to discover and shop and support your small business, but you also get access to our sisterhood community. And it's such a fantastic, safe space for female founders to come together, network, connect, share resources. We have workshops, all that wonderful stuff. And it really does feel like a family there. I'm so grateful to our community. I know like some of our members are here, so thank you for being here. But initially, we started out as in-person pop-up shopping events, primarily in New York City. The pandemic hit, that was no longer a thing. We went digital, like completely virtual, and it has been so great to be able to connect with, serve, and support businesses now all over the world, which is really cool.
And how was that transition to digital? Did you see an immediate, pretty seamless switch, or did it take your audience a bit of time to get accustomed to that?
I think we're still adjusting.
Yeah.
We did move really quickly. It was very clear that our community and the people that we serve needed a lot of support during that time. What's really interesting is, WAWO, we're a small women-owned business ourselves. We're a team of 5. And so, and at the time less, I think we were mainly a team of 2 to 3 when this all happened. And I knew already that in-person events wasn't completely sustainable for a million reasons. So we were already seeding, doing more online. We just had to move fast. And it was really a time, and this is business in general, business ownership, but it was really a time of exploration and finding out where our community was at that moment and what they needed, and exploring and shifting with that. Exactly. So we landed on doing virtual pop-ups, which were month-long temporary directory, which then led me, which was so well received, and we just kept them going. But it led me to the idea of a more permanent directory as well. Awesome. So, and we had launched the sisterhood community, and now we merged the two into one offering. So, but I think we're still, finding our footing, and maybe that's true for business, no matter how many years you're in. As you evolve, I think as a person, as a business owner, and as your community, or your customers, your clients evolve, it's important to try to meet them where they're at. So, yeah.
Totally. And I think what's so cool about the tips we're going to talk about today, and even the issue platform, is that, like small businesses like yourself, it allows you to kind of be really nimble and make those shifts and changes when you need to, based on whatever factors come your way.
Yes, I agree. And also someone who I've been open about this more on my personal Instagram, but I'm neurodiverse too. I have ADHD, and it's important for me to build a business that it feels exciting. It feels like there's always movement, and that there's many different areas for us to grow into. With me, it feels like sky's the limit. Like there's so much we can do under the WAWO umbrella. So, that has also been a huge asset to me, and I think exciting for the company as a whole.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing. So now I know a lot of you are probably already familiar with Issue. A lot of you probably use Issue right now, but I know we have a few on the call today who are not familiar with our platform. So the Issue platform essentially allows you to bring your content, your files to life, whether you are a large multinational corporation or a single entrepreneur or a student working in any industry, creating any sort of content, whether it's a brochure, magazine, catalog, product guide, etc. You can upload and publish on the Issue platform and transform your content into a more engaging and easily shareable experience. And what I have here are just a few resources that I won't go into now, but that will be sent out in the slides if you want to learn a little bit more, if you aren't already familiar with what we do here at Issue.
Breathe new life into your stuff.
Here we go. So Lisa, please walk us through some of these important stats you have here about the importance of supporting women-owned small businesses. I know when we chatted earlier, a lot of this information I really had no idea, and I think a lot of people on the call will be in a similar boat. So please take us through some of this context about the history of women-owned businesses.
I know, I think it's so important for us to touch upon this. And I will say that even before or during, let's say, starting We Are Women Owned, I wasn't even aware of some of this. So I think whether you are a woman, no matter what your gender is, specifically if you are a woman-owned business, you might not even know this. And of course, let's just go through a few of the stats and facts that I pulled for us. But one thing that is wild to think about is that it's been less than 50 years since women were even allowed to start their own businesses here in the US. And it wasn't until 1988 when President Reagan signed the Women's Business Ownership Act that women were no longer required a male co-signer on loans for female entrepreneurs. So there was no way for us to access extra capital at that time without having a male co-signer, which was typically your husband. So we have come a long way in a short time, but we still have a lot of work to do. I do want to talk a little bit more about women-owned businesses. So across the globe, which is very exciting, 1 in 3 businesses are owned by women. Today, 42% of all American small businesses are women-owned and operated. And in 2022, only 2.3% of women-led startups received VC funding. I will have you know that most women entrepreneurs are funding their businesses on their own, mostly through their credit cards, to be honest. So it's not uncommon. I would say it's very common to hear stories about women, small business owners getting into credit card debt. And then 88% of businesses owned by women generate less than $100,000 a year in revenue. So now I want to talk a little bit about just women's purchasing power in general and the positive impact that we have on the economy as women, and also women small business owners. So women drive 85% of all purchasing decisions. Women are the sole income earners in 40% of US households. women are also more likely to greatly contribute to their local communities and causes that matter to them than our male counterparts, which I know is true for me. Like I was sharing earlier, I love going to the women-owned brick and mortar local businesses and spending way too much time and money there. But it's just something that I fully believe in terms of getting more money into the hands of women, especially our, in my local community, and other causes that I care greatly about. Women-owned businesses generate an average of 1.8 trillion per year, and that number is growing by the minute. Women-owned businesses employ 9.4 million people, and this total number of employees represents a growth of 8%. So by looking at all of this, Talia, so you can go to the next slide here. While the gender pay gap spans across almost all industries, one of the ways that we can help shift the power dynamic in our global economy is to get more money into the hands of women by shopping and supporting women-owned small businesses. Again, the more dollars we can get into the hands of women, as we shared a few slides ago, women make 85% of all purchasing decisions and are more likely to do good for our local and global communities. So we want to get more money into the hands of women.
I think that kind of the foundation you've laid here is really interesting, starting from that all of this is really quite recent history, and then how it can be improved, like organizations like WAWO are improving the situation for women-owned businesses. And I think that's why organizations like yours are so important. There's not many that are both spreading this awareness and then working to actually help improve this general situation.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to recognize as women, as female founders, the incredible role that we play and how amazing it is that we are doing the work that we're doing and the impact that we are having, again, both, on our local economy and the global economy. I don't think it's celebrated enough. And, going into, so my first business was not WAWO, which was about 7 or 8 years ago. And it was just so challenging there weren't very many communities out for, in support of women-owned small businesses at the time. And the threshold to get in was so high, like you had to make 6-7 figures, and the annual membership fee was really high. And it just felt super exclusive and excluding. And so that something shifted for me there, because I was like, why is it so hard to get resources and information and capital and all of these things? And this is when I started to do more research. And at the time, there weren't many women-owned small businesses even promoting the fact that they were women-owned.
Interesting.
When I would do the pop-ups, I had to do a lot of research and send a lot of cold emails asking. I was like, I feel like this business is probably women-owned, just from like the aesthetic, the mission, content that they were posting. And so that's a big part of where the name We Are Women Owned came from. I wanted more women standing loud and proud and celebrating the fact that they were women owned.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, we need each other. Women must stick together.
Well, let's dive into some of the top tips that We Are Women Owned and you have for small businesses, women-owned small businesses. I think what I found the most fascinating about the insights that you're bringing today with respect to content marketing is they're not necessarily, they feel much more human than a lot of what's typically discussed related to content marketing. You're not talking about how to get to X number of revenue or followers or et cetera, or cut costs or statistics, but it's about kind of holistically creating a community that then will ultimately see oftentimes greater business success. So I think that's pretty fantastic. The first tip that you identified is storytelling. And I know at Issue, we are proud to be an organization that's all about storytelling and supporting people telling their own and their organization's stories.
Yes. So I do want to, yes, I love your point about like, we're not going to go heavy into like numbers and insights and analytics and things like that. But you're so right. I feel like once you get a really solid foundation with these 3 tips, which I really think I'm like almost hesitant to use the word easy, but I want these tips to feel as easy, impactful, and valuable as possible, both to you as the founder and to whoever is consuming this content.
Yeah.
So I do want to start with storytelling. And it's because when I started my first business, it wasn't until I kind of had a little breakdown on social media, I'm not going to lie. And at the time, you weren't really seeing people be vulnerable in this way.
Yeah.
And not only was it very therapeutic for myself, but I just felt such a powerful sense of community. I felt so supported in a way that I had been seeking for so long. And I just fostered and cultivated these beautiful connections out of like pulling the curtain a little, back a little bit and really showing like the human and what I like to call the heartbeat behind the brand. And what came out of that without me expecting it, in addition to that amazing connection was an increase in sales and an increase in some of the most loyal customers who have become clients of mine throughout my entrepreneurial journey, because I went from running a product-based business to a service-based business. So I know for a fact that this is such a powerful tool, storytelling. And what I mean by that is using a narrative to communicate a message. Storytelling can help audiences better understand you as the founder, your products, your services. Stories drive emotion, stories inspire action, and stories bring people together. So while sometimes the main character of the story will be your clients or your customers, which I highly recommend, like share how your product or service has helped them relieve a pain or create a gain. I also think that on occasion, and I highly recommend this, that the main character is you. And so for me, like really allowing your personality to shine, sharing your stories from your own personal experience is a fantastic way to really humanize your brand and for you to begin to build that know, like, trust factor with your audience. We are so hungry for connection, and real people drive real connections. So don't be afraid to pull the curtain back a little and let people know about you as the founder. And like I said earlier, like you as the literal heartbeat behind or of the business, not even behind the business.
I think people are so afraid oftentimes to do what you're talking about because either it's just not been the norm for so long, or people are worried it's somehow not professional. But I think more and more your audience and your consumers are looking to actually understand, like you're saying, who is the heartbeat behind this organization that they're purchasing a product or service or content from. And this is exactly how you do that.
I have to tell you, I do a lot of research on the businesses that I support inside of WAWO and outside of WAWO. And if you go on the directory, this is actually a cool feature. We do have something called a brand profile. So you see a button to like go shop or view the services of a business, and then there's a button with the profile. And there you can learn so much more about the business, their values, the founder's story, more about the business, testimonials, things like that. I can't tell you how much more pride I have and like excitement once I know the story of the brand and someone asks me about it, or just tell them, I'm just like, you need to know about this business and this is what they're all about. And this is why I'm so excited to like support them. There's nothing greater than being able to support businesses that have such a compelling story. I tend to retell those stories often. And that's part of one of the reasons why I think it's so important, because people will get excited and want to share your story with other people too. I am so glad that we're showing this slide here. So I have loved Issue. We've used it the past couple years to put together our holiday gift guide, which is such a beautiful experience. It is digital, it's shoppable. You can click the products and go directly to the website. And back in 2021, which was the first gift guide, that feels like so long ago and so not long ago at the same time. The theme I would say for this specific holiday gift guide, and this is something I want to talk about, is making sure that with when we're thinking about storytelling, that you want to put a little bit, you want it to be authentic, but you also want to put a little strategy behind it.
Exactly.
And so we want to make sure that there is like this theme and that there's a clear beginning, middle, and end.
Mm.
And so I would say the theme for this gift guide was sisterhood and women's empowerment. So on a personal note, I had lost my mom suddenly in the process of putting together our 2021 holiday gift guide. And I am just so blown away by the final product, of the gift guide. And I
Yeah.
would not have been able to do it without the support of my team showing up like 300% because I had to step away from work for a while, like literally in the middle of putting together everything. And also the community members, they really showed up for me. And it was not the easiest, and I still struggle with this. It's not the easiest for me to receive support, especially from people who, I feel like I should be there supporting them.
Yep.
And I know for a fact it would not have been possible. This whole guide and the finished product would not have been possible with every single community member and team member that showed up to uplift me and support me throughout this time, whether it was personally or seeing this project through. We also told the stories of several different brands throughout the guide. As you can see here, my screen's a little too small, but like a phenomenal brands like Gifty Wrap, who's really all about supporting a lot of local minority owned artists and then taking their prints and then printing them onto gift wrapping paper. I think they also have a sustainability focus and it's a Black owned business. So we really, leaned into telling that story and what's so exciting about this business. So I would say that's a good example for 2021. And then for 2022, we leaned much more heavily into the importance of supporting women-owned businesses, which we talked a little bit about at the start of this webinar. So I in the editor's letter this past year, I talked more about those stats and facts, some of which I shared with you today. And then throughout the guide, we shared more information, more stats, more figures to tie into the story that we were telling.
And I think a couple things stood out to me that you're talking about here. One is kind of this sense of balance and still having a overall, I think, strategy behind the content you're sharing, and balancing the personal reflection with the broader mission, with advocating for the people in your community. And I think like you had a very balanced spread of all those things. And I think cumulatively it created something really great. I also think it's kind of a testament to what you were talking about earlier with your team and your community stepping up for you and taking on some of that slack. And I think that just shows that those methods of create a community that's really quite strong, and that you actually as a founder can rely on yourself. It's so true.
It was so uncomfortable, but honestly, I don't know what I would have done with that support. And now I lean on more. I think, as and maybe I think you can feel this way even if you don't run a community, just with your team, but you feel like you have to show up for everybody else, And so it was uncomfortable, but now I lean on, it's like truly like a family. I can't stress that enough.
Great. Yeah.
And it's like, I'm here for you, but every now and then, now I feel okay. There's one lovely woman named Poi on today's webinar. And I was like, I need an accountability buddy to finish this course because I want to get my women's entrepreneurship certification. I have a hard time sticking, with these courses from start to finish. And she was like, I'm here, let me help you. And she's a community member. So we meet bi-weekly now and just share, what we've learned and the progress that we've made and hold each other accountable. So I'm also learning to lean on, love you too, to lean on our community members for support. We really do need each other. And it feels like a healthy balance of giving and receiving.
I think we could all take a little bit of insight from that. And now we're moving on to the second tip that you have for us today, repurposing content. And this really feels super in line with what we do here at Issue. It's not just about publishing that content once, but doing as many things as possible in as little time and as little effort as possible. And I'd love to hear how you and We Are Women Owned kind of embodies repurposing content, how you've done it in the past, and walk us through this graphic that you actually created.
Yeah, so I want to say that as a small business owner who has experience with doing it all alone, or mostly alone. It is so important that we learn to maximize our time and efficiency.
Mm.
And so I just want to talk about not having to reinvent the wheel all the time. So one of the things that I think can be such a game changer, and you might be doing this here and there, but I want to encourage you to like fully lean into this concept, is repurposing content. So recycling or reusing content you've already created and reformatting that content to best suit each of the platforms you're going to share it on based upon your audience and your marketing goals.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the goal is to yield more output with not as much or not much more input. So one of the things that I wanted to share today, I just created this, I hope it makes sense, is taking a long form piece of content, let's say like a blog post, and either using that to elaborate or to create, like I said, simplify here. But what I mean by that is creating more bite-sized, digestible pieces of content to share on your other platforms. Yeah. So let's head over to the elaborate section first. Let's say you have a blog post, and I do encourage you, if you are not looking at your numbers, go ahead and do that. See which blog posts are getting the most traction in terms of comments, clicks, views, all of that good stuff, because chances are there's probably, 1 to 3 topics that are getting the most amount of traction. So I think this could be a great opportunity. The people are telling you what they want, right? What they're resonating with. So you might want to use that as an opportunity to dive even deeper into that topic. And you can do that in the form of long form video. Yep. So maybe it's a YouTube video, right? You can do that in the form of a podcast. You can do that in the form of an ebook or a guide, which I think Issue would be great for like ebooks or guides.
Exactly.
I think that with Issue, we can quickly think of it more for product-based businesses, but there's so many ways for service-based businesses to tap into a resource like Issue. Mm-hmm. So that's the elaborate. It's an opportunity to go much deeper into a topic that's already resonating with your community, and you already have like the solid foundation. It's just like, okay, like what are a few more things I can do to add more value and share more knowledge? Then the simplification route, I want you to lean on this as much as possible. So let's say we take that blog post and we break it down into smaller pieces of content. And that could be in the form of an infographic. That could be in the form of short form video, which we know is all the rage. And that's not going anywhere anytime soon. And also a great resource for storytelling, right? So with short form video, that could be an Instagram reel, a TikTok, a YouTube short, video pins. And you could really, I'm trying to think of the word, water it down. I think it gets the point across. Not that I want you to water down your content, but you can take it like, let's say your blog post has 5 tips. You don't have to share all the 5 tips at once. It could just be one at a time, which honestly, that's more content for you to have scheduled, right? So each tip could be 1 post. Yep. But also, I know personally, and I've been testing things out behind the scenes with WAWO, that giving them 1 piece of information at a time is just so much more easy for them to absorb. Exactly. So please don't be afraid. Let's say you have 7 tips on that blog post, to create 7 different posts where you talk about each one of those tips separately. And then you can also do a newsletter series too, where maybe it's like you send out a newsletter with the 1st tip and the 2nd tip and the 3rd tip. And on the blog post, it just goes a little more in depth about that. And then what's really cool is that Issue, I think that might be the next slide. I don't have it in front of me. Let's say I know you'll talk a little bit more about this, but the beautiful, experience that we've created on Issue with our holiday gift guide, they've also made it super easy for us small business owners to repurpose content straight from whatever publication we've put out for other platforms. And Talia, you can speak better about this than I can.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I think the ethos of the Issue platform aligns very closely with that graphic you just shared. You can start with whatever content you have, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, whether you're just making a a magazine or an editorial catalog or a zine for your class or your portfolio or whatever it may be, you can start with that piece of content that you have, upload it to Issue as a flip book, and then create a lot of those assets that were just in this diagram you shared within the Issue platform. So let's say you kind of wanted to create a blog style post. We have an articles feature that actually automatically kind of looks through your document and extracts the articles within it that you can share in this mobile format, share it to social media. So again, that process is just completely simplified. You don't have to set up something else. You have those bite-sized snippets ready to share. And then even like what you're discussing with those 5 tips, we have a social post feature that similarly to articles, it extracts some of the content from your publication, and you can make social posts for Instagram stories, reels, and any sort of social platform. So let's say you, in your larger piece of content, you talk about 5 larger tips. You could quickly make 5 social posts about each one and space those out over a course of a week or a month or even a couple months. And it, especially for smaller businesses that don't have, large design or marketing teams, you can create this content in a few minutes, and then you can have your content strategy filled out for a month or longer.
Oh yeah, especially if you have a 100+ page gift guide.
Exactly. Yeah, you have a lot of content.
You can have a lot of content. Yeah, it's so great to have resources like this because, like you said, when you're a lean team, it can help you save time, money, and energy. And that's what I love about the concept of learning to and becoming comfortable with repurposing your content. And I also want to say that chances are that if one piece of content performed well on one platform, it's going to do well on others.
So true.
So don't be afraid to reshare content, even like past content that it's been a while that you've shared. You have new people interacting with you all the time, right? You probably have new people following you all the time. So don't be afraid to take old content and share it as is, maybe exactly as you shared it in the past, or maybe there's a piece of content that maybe didn't perform as great as you would have hoped. You can use this as an opportunity to like rework the content, maybe try out a different title, or just find a different way to talk about it and see if that helps generate more interest in and engagement in that topic. And I also feel like by continuing to share pieces of content related to a specific subject, it can help establish you as the expert or, the go-to brand when they're thinking about a specific topic or category. So
that's so
don't
important.
be afraid. There's I don't know if this is still the stat, but there's a saying called "the fortune is in the follow-up," which a lot of you'll hear a lot in the service industry in terms of like, don't be afraid to follow up with people. But I think that the stat is like, it can take people up to 7 times sometimes of seeing something to take action. So don't be afraid. And like with social media, we are inundated with so much information all the time. I know I see content that I'm like, oh my God, whether it's a product or a service that I'm interested in, I'm like, oh, I'll have to check that out later. And then I forget. So keep putting that content in front of people.
Exactly. And that brings us to, I'm actually going to move over this slide for now, just for the sake of time. We will have this in the slides after. We have one more tip for you today. This is our 3rd and final tip. I want to make sure we get to this before we hit our time. Engaging with your audience, which I think is a really vital 3rd component to these tips we've discussed. Can you walk us through some of these ways of engaging with your content that you have here?
Absolutely. So let's go through the list really quickly, and then the 3 that are highlighted, we'll talk a little more in depth about. So engaging with your audience. This also ties into what can happen with storytelling, right? Is cultivating and fostering community. So when you are sharing on social media, as much as possible, make sure that there's a clear call to action, right? So at the end, or sometimes even at the beginning, it depends on what you're posting. And you can also experiment to see what people are resonating with most. But let's say for social focused call to actions, that could be like, click the link in our bio to RSVP or shop our latest collection. If you're asking a question, you can end the post with, let us know in the comments below, right? Or let's say you have a piece of valuable content that, like I said, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. Let me, check this out later. You can say share and save, or like save this post for later. And I think that's a good one to start at the very top of the copy. Just say save this post for later. And I can't tell you, more often than not, people will actually go and save that. We have to tell people what to do, like make it as clear as possible what we want them their next action to be. So you'll see some things like tag a friend, who will resonate with this, so that's what we mean by CTAs. Create shareable, savable graphics and reels. This is what I was just talking about. Reply to comments and DMs, send welcome DMs, engage with your followers' content. I feel like this is something that is often skipped. So even if you're not following your followers, go ahead and every now and then, maybe a few times a week, take half an hour, and just go through your followers. And I want to say genuinely and authentically engage with their content.
Yes, that's
There's
so
something you're not about, don't like it, don't comment. But I do think it's important to go through your followers occasionally, check in on them, interact a little bit, and also the people who are engaging with your content the most. So whether that's through DM or in the comments section, we want to make sure that we are spending time with the people who are, who have been our greatest supporters. And then there's host giveaways, contests, or challenges, create polls, and share the results, reshare content that they tag or mention you in. So these are just some, you're welcome to screenshot this too.
Oh, yes. Yes. And this will again be in the slides we share out. So you'll have this full list. So I know 3 of these highlighted examples, you have some specific ways that We Are Women Owned has done this. And I'd love to hear more about each of these methods of engaging.
Yeah, so when creating examples of shareable, savable content, these are a few of our top performing posts in terms of saves and reshares in the last 2 years. So there's a theme here, right? There's education, there's entertainment, and then there's like relatability, I would say. Yeah. So definitely like memes still do really well. Sharing. So we have here the benefits of each Instagram feature. People just ate that up. One of our top performing reshared posts is It's Okay If. During the holidays, I think it's really important to be sensitive to people who, are going through a hard time. Like, especially like I lost my mom, later in the year, her birthday's in December. It's a very emotional time for me. So this really spoke to me. And I just reshared this lovely graphic from another brand, which I gave credit to. I think that's also very important if you're going to reshare other people's content. And the caption was like personal to how I was feeling, and just holding space for other people who might be going through a challenging time. And then you can never go wrong if you're a small business owner with showcasing and spotlighting ways to support women-owned businesses. So like anything that's like inspirational, relatable, educational, entertainment, I bet you is going to perform really, really well.
So true. And I think exactly like you mentioned, this ties back to your first point about storytelling and how important that can be.
All right. So this is what I'm calling an efficiency hack. And
I didn't know about this. This is great.
Yeah. And something, you're going to want to take a screenshot of this if this isn't something that you implement, that you might be interested in implementing into your content strategy. But a few years ago, I had an interaction with a brand that really left an impression on me. And it's a brand, like a sustainable women's apparel brand. I just blocked it out for privacy, but they sent me this DM that thanked me for following them. The person that reached out to me from their team, said, this is who I am. I help with their Instagram, told me a little bit more about the company. And it actually, again, it just hit a note. I don't know, I can't explain it. And we started to have a conversation. And at the end of the conversation, she's like, you know what, I'd love to offer you 30% off. And ever since then, I was like, not to say you have to offer 30% off, but I just saw the impact of like sending a welcome / intro DM to people who have taken the time to land on your profile and follow you. And I've shared, I'm not going to go through it here, but a good way to get a head start on this is to create a saved reply on Instagram, which you should be able to do on your business or creator profile. So just follow these steps. And what's great about this is you can create a template that's already ready to go. If you want to personalize it a little bit more before you hit send, that's perfectly great too. But when you go to send a DM, so mine is when I type in 23 new, because it's like 2023, like the new people. So my trigger term is 23 new. When I type that into the DM, it'll auto populate the message that I've already put together, and I can go in and customize, like, do I want to include their name? Sometimes, we have people who are not small business owners who are following us who want to support. So I might, tweak the messaging a little bit there. Or if they are a women-owned business, I might, share something a little bit different. And I also have found that you want to just, in my experience, have found that just try and share, like if you're going to share a link or like a call to action, just make it one. There was a point in time where I had 3 and not much traction was happening there. One of our goals right now is building our email list. So whether you are a women small business owner or someone who's interested in discovering more and about women-owned businesses, we encourage people to sign up for our newsletter. So that's like the thing that we've been focusing on, and it's actually really helped. Because chances are, if people are landing on your Facebook, Instagram page and they're following, they're likely going to be invested and want to learn more about your business and learn about more ways that they can get more deeply involved. So this is a great little efficiency hack. So you don't have to type it out every single time. Just create a pre-saved reply, and you could do this for several things. Like if you get commonly asked questions, go ahead and have those pre-saved to save you some time and energy.
Yes. And I will just make a quick note here. We are at time. We're just going to wrap up this presentation, but if you do have to drop now, we will be sending out the recording and the slides immediately after the webinar. So you'll be able to catch up on whatever last few minutes we discuss here live. So we will continue going, but if you do have to drop, we will send this out very shortly, just so everyone knows. There's so much content to cover. We could talk about this. I barely went
through my notes.
I know.
Which we just don't have time for. But I hope that this was helpful and that you found a valuable piece of, something to take away with you. I really appreciate you all being here.
Are there any last notes you want to touch on with examples of the challenge giveaway here?
Oh, sure. We can talk a little bit about it. So what we did for our last holiday gift guide is that we created a Shop Women Owned challenge where we challenged all the people to shop directly with women-owned businesses throughout the holiday season. So we did a challenge for that, and it included a giveaway. So if you filled out this template, this Instagram stories template that we created and shared it to Instagram stories, you would be entered to win a prize. And then we also had another contest going on where you shared your women-owned holiday wish list. And if you shared that on Instagram stories, you were also entered to win some women-owned products.
Yep.
And this was a great way to give back to our community, or a greater community, let's say. And also it was a great way to get more visibility on WAWO and therefore the brands that we support, because they're out there sharing about We Are Women Owned, and we would also reshare it.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you so much. Those are our 3 tips from We Are Women Owned about content marketing. I think we covered a lot of great ground today. And I think really will be a good starting place for any business working to engage with their community, build an audience, and improve their content marketing. So we don't have many live questions today. I will acknowledge that there are a few unanswered. For the sake of time, we won't answer those live, but I will be emailing you personally with responses to your questions. So the few people who didn't get your questions answered, expect an email from me shortly responding to your question. We can't quite touch on that live, but no fear, we'll get that answered for you. Just to cap out today, we jointly wanted to offer you a special. I know on the issue side of things, we have this code WAWO20 where you can take 20% off all issue annual plans until the end of the month. Lisa, did you want to run through this offer that you have as well.
Yeah, I'll do it as quickly as possible. If you're interested in becoming a member of the We Are Women Owned network, I wanted to extend an offer for you to join and save $100 off either our yearly membership or our lifetime membership. So yearly is $498, so it would be $398, and lifetime, which we haven't even announced lifetime yet, but if you do apply and you're accepted, we will let you choose from either or option, even though it's not, and we haven't announced it yet. But that's something I'm so excited to offer. So for the price of 2 years, which for you all, it would be $896 instead of $996, you would have access to the community and having your business listed in the directory for as long as WAWO is around, which we hope is a very, very long time. That is the plan. So I'm very excited to create that offering and also to serve as many women small business owners as we possibly can.
Exactly. That's amazing. Well, thank you again, Lisa, for coming on today. This was a fantastic conversation. I know I learned a lot talking with you, and hopefully everyone else did as well. If you have any questions, I'll go back to this slide about anything we covered today or about how you can get started using your Issue for content marketing, please just shoot us an email at webinars@issue.com. Again, we'll share out this link after the webinar is over. So with that, I will stop sharing. Thanks again, Lisa, and thanks again, everyone, for tuning in today.
Thank you. Have a great one.
You too. Bye.